It came back. Three words that just broke Chuck Schumer's entire strategy in half. Because for 12 straight months, the most powerful Democrat in the Senate built one wall. One wall designed to kill one bill. And on a Thursday night, while most of America was asleep, that wall developed a crack so deep that no amount of procedural maneuvering, no amount of press releases, no amount of Chuck Schumer standing at a podium calling this Jim Crow 2.0 is going to seal it back up. The Save America Act just hit 50 votes in the United States Senate. Remember that number? Because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why 50 is the number that changes everything. Not 60, not 53, 50. And why the man who declared this bill dead on arrival 12 months ago is now the one scrambling for answers. Stick around, because what happened in the last 72 hours is going to reshape every federal election you vote in for the rest of your life. And I am going to show you three things in this video that almost nobody in the mainstream media is connecting right now. First, I am going to show you the exact moment the bill everyone buried came back from the dead. The specific vote, the specific senator, the specific minute it happened. Second, I am going to show you the one procedural weapon that Schumer has left, and why it is weaker right now than it has ever been in the last decade. Third, and this is the part almost nobody is covering, I am going to show you the empty chair in this fight. The one figure whose absence from the Senate floor changes the math in a way that every outlet from CNN to Fox has completely failed to explain. Hold on for that third piece, because when you see it, everything clicks into place. And listen, if you care about election integrity, if you are tired of turning on the news and watching pundits tell you this bill is dead when the actual Senate record says something completely different, smash that like button right now and let the algorithm know that Americans are paying attention. Every single click pushes this story past the gatekeepers and puts it in front of another voter who deserves to know what their Senate did while they were sleeping. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this fight moves fast, and you are going to want the breakdown the morning it changes again. Now, before I show you the resurrection, you need to understand the weapon that was supposed to keep this bill in the ground forever. Because most people watching the news have heard the word filibuster 1,000 times and still do not actually understand what it does. And once you understand it, you will never watch a Senate story the same way again. Here is the rule. In the United States Senate, winning a vote is not enough. A simple majority, 51 senators saying yes, is not enough to pass most legislation. The minority party can force what is called a cloture vote, and to survive that vote, you need 60 senators, not a majority, 60. Republicans hold 53 seats right now. Do the math. They are 7 votes short before a single Democrat even opens their mouth. Think of it this way. Imagine you won an election. You got more votes than anyone else. You showed up to work on day one with the biggest team in the building. And then someone tells you there is a rule, not in any law, not in the Constitution, just a rule the Senate made up for itself, that says your team needs 7 volunteers from the losing side before you can do anything meaningful. And those 7 volunteers are never coming. Not on this bill. Not ever. That is the filibuster. That is what Schumer has been hiding behind for an entire year. But here is what the media keeps skipping over. And this is the piece that changes the story completely. That 60-vote wall is not the only road into law. There has always been a backdoor. A legal, established, completely legitimate backdoor that both parties have used for decades. It is called budget reconciliation. And anything that travels through reconciliation cannot be filibustered. It passes with a simple majority, 50 votes, plus the Vice President of the United States breaking the tie if it lands at exactly even. The Bush tax cuts went through reconciliation. The Affordable Care Act went through reconciliation. The Inflation Reduction Act went through reconciliation. Both parties reach for this tool when the filibuster stands between them and their biggest promises. And now Republicans are reaching for it to secure American elections. But reconciliation has a catch, and it is a serious one. Every provision inside a reconciliation bill has to relate to the federal budget, spending, revenue, dollars and cents. You cannot just attach any policy you want and sail it through with 50 votes. There is a referee, an unelected Senate official called the parliamentarian whose entire job is to decide what counts as budgetary. And earlier this year, that referee looked at the Save America Act and said, no, does not qualify. So at that point, the obituaries started getting written. Schumer was practically celebrating. The press declared the bill finished, and for a few weeks, it looked like they were right. Except they forgot one thing. This base does not attend funerals for bills it believes in. Let me walk you through exactly what happened, because the timeline here is not just interesting, it is the entire story. Go back to February of 2026. The House of Representatives passed the Save America Act for the second time, 218 to 213. Almost perfectly down party lines. Exactly one Democrat crossed over. One. Out of the entire Democratic caucus. The bill crossed the Capitol to the Senate, walked up to that 60-vote wall, and hit it immediately. Schumer declared it dead on arrival before the ink was dry. March. Republicans tried anyway. They forced a cloture vote. 51 senators said yes. A clean majority of the most powerful legislative body on earth voted to move forward. And the bill went nowhere. Because 51 is not 60. Then, April. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana tried to bolt the core of the bill onto a budget package. His motion failed 48 to 50. 4 Republicans voting with every single Democrat to kill it. 4. Same 4 names every time. McConnell, Murkowski, Tillis, Collins. Sit with that for a second. Republicans, blocking their own president's top legislative priority. Not because they oppose the idea. Every one of them has said publicly they support the concept of voter id. But because of procedure, because of process, because of institutional loyalty to a Senate rule. Their opponents have already said they would torch the moment it inconvenienced them. May. The Senate parliamentarian ruled the bill ineligible for reconciliation. Schumer called it the final nail. The press agreed. And Republican leadership, facing a wall in front and 4 holdouts behind them, quietly signaled they were unlikely to bring it back to the floor. That should have been the end. But then something happened that Washington did not see coming. A small group of House conservatives decided the waiting was over. Led by Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, they did something I have honestly never seen done this aggressively on a single piece of legislation. They hijacked the House's own agenda. They took down procedural rules. They stopped the floor from functioning. They ground the People's House to a complete halt and told Speaker Johnson directly, the Save America Act moves or nothing moves. Johnson himself sent Congress home early for July 4th recess. Not because the schedule said so, because his own members shut the floor down demanding this bill. Let that sink in. The Speaker of the United States House of Representatives could not keep the lights on without addressing this issue. And while Congress was scattered across the country watching fireworks, President Trump lit a fire of his own. In his Independence Day remarks, he called for the bill again, and publicly torched the Senate holdouts by name. The message from the White House could not have been clearer. The excuses are finished. Then came the week that changed everything, July 21st. New Jersey's Democratic Governor Mikey Sherrill called a press conference and admitted something her party has spent years calling a conspiracy theory. She announced that roughly 6,600 non-citizens had been registered to vote in New Jersey. And according to a preliminary state review, roughly 400 of them actually cast ballots. Read that again. Not registered by fraudsters operating in the shadows. Registered by the state itself. 6,600 people who are not American citizens placed on the voter rolls of an American state. And hundreds of them voted. But here is the part almost nobody covered. And it is the detail that turned an embarrassing story into a devastating one. Sherrill tried to blame a software vendor. A company called IDEMIA. Blame the software, contain the damage, move on. Except the software company refused to play along. Their senior vice president publicly stated that all 6,600 applicants had answered no when asked whether they were United States citizens. And the system recorded both answers correctly. The citizenship data was transmitted to the state's Division of Elections. Sit with that. According to the vendor, these people told the state in writing, "I am not a citizen." And the state registered them anyway. And nobody caught it for over a year. Every version of that story is an argument for the Save America Act. July 22nd. The House passed instructions to attach voter ID provisions to a budget reconciliation package. And on the same day, tucked inside the Stop Insider Trading Act, Republicans sent voter ID to the Senate a second way, simultaneously. 2 vehicles, 2 shots on goal, same day. And then 13 Democrats voted yes on the insider trading bill. 13. The largest group of Democratic crossovers on voter ID legislation since Republicans first started advancing these proposals through Congress. 1 Democrat in February. 6 on the defense bill. 13 on voter ID paired with insider trading reform. That is not a wall cracking. That is a wall buckling under its own weight. And then July 23rd. James Carville, the Ragin' Cajun, the man who ran the war room that put Bill Clinton in the White House, the most famous Democratic strategist alive. He went on his own podcast and told his party to surrender. He warned them flat out, "We are not going to win the war against some kind of id." He admitted the fight makes his party look terrible. He said it comes across that Democrats do not want to check the eligibility of voters. Gee, James, I wonder why it comes across that way. Now zoom out. Because a legendary Democratic operative publicly waving the white flag on air, 13 Democratic House members crossing the aisle, a Democratic governor accidentally proving the exact argument Republicans have been making for a decade, all of that happening in 7 days. That is not coincidence. That is a dam breaking. And Washington noticed, because the very next week, on a Thursday night during an all-night amendment session, Senator Mike Lee of Utah played a card he had been holding for exactly the right moment. Lee introduced the original House-passed Save America Act. No additions, no riders, no extra provisions that had made the loaded version radioactive for certain members. Stripped down to the exact clean text the House had already approved twice. And then he waited for the vote. Susan Collins of Maine, the fourth name on the wall. The senator who had voted no on the loaded Graham version just 1 hour earlier. Switched. She crossed over and voted yes on the clean bill. The amendment received 50 votes in favor, 49 against. The official Senate record logs it as vote number 151, June 5, 2026, 11:39 p.m. 50 votes, for the first time in the entire life of this bill. Now slow down, because this is the part nobody is framing correctly. 50 votes sounds like a loss. It is not 60. The bill did not pass. Schumer is already out there saying nothing changed. But here is what 50 actually means. And this is the twist that changes everything. With Vice President J.D. Vance available to break a tie, 50 plus Vance equals 51. A majority of the United States Senate, on the official record, supports the Save America Act. The bill that Schumer buried on arrival. The bill that failed vote after vote after vote. Has a documented Senate majority. Not a theoretical majority. Not a polling majority. A recorded, time-stamped, logged forever Senate majority. Mike Lee said it himself on social media while the vote session was still running. He wrote that but for the zombie filibuster, the House-passed Save America Act would already be on its way to the White House for President Trump's signature. Not the votes. The votes exist. The procedure is the only thing standing between this bill and becoming law. And now, the twist you did not see coming. The man who has been the biggest obstacle in this entire saga is not Chuck Schumer. It was never Chuck Schumer. Schumer is the opposing team. You expect him to block it. The man who has been strangling this bill is Mitch McConnell, the former Republican leader. A man who voted against his own party's top priority in form after form after form. A man who took to the Wall Street Journal to publish his opposition. A Republican. And Mitch McConnell has been absent from the Senate floor for weeks. One of the bill's most stubborn Republican obstacles is simply not there. Almost no outlet is connecting these dots right now. But you can see it. The 60-vote shield does not apply on the reconciliation track. The filibuster hardliner Collins just crossed over on the clean bill. The tiebreaker Vance is ready. The most dependable Republican no vote is absent from the chamber. For the first time since February, the math is not a fantasy. The math is sitting right there on the table. Now let me give you the honest picture. Because I promised you the full story, and that means telling you what the other side is saying and why it matters. First, the parliamentarian problem is real. The reconciliation track requires that election provisions survive the Byrd Rule review, and that referee already said no once. Republicans have redesigned the approach, converting the policy into grant funding, giving states money to implement voter ID rather than mandating it directly. Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas believes the grant structure can survive review if written precisely. But believing it can survive and having it survive are two different things. If the parliamentarian strips the language again, Republicans walk out holding a defense and agriculture bill and nothing else. Second, the Collins paradox. Susan Collins just delivered the 50th vote for the bill. She is also one of the most consistent opponents of eliminating the legislative filibuster in the entire Senate. The senator who proved the majority exists would likely refuse to change the rule that blocks the majority. That is not a contradiction she has resolved publicly. And until she does, 50 votes on an amendment during a vote session is not the same as 50 votes on final passage through reconciliation. Third, the calendar. Between the August recess and October campaign season, Congress will be in session for a handful of real legislative days before the November midterms. Every one of those days is a negotiation, a government funding deadline, a reconciliation markup, a vote-a-rama full of Democratic poison pill amendments designed to generate attack ads against vulnerable Republican incumbents. Thune is not wrong when he says the risk of keeping senators on the floor for weeks is real. And fourth, this bill has failed on the Senate floor at least 6 times this year. 6. The people telling you this is easy are lying to you. Anyone who watched all 6 of those votes and says the path is clear is not being straight with you. But here is my problem with the case against it, and it is a fundamental problem. The votes exist. They are on the record. A majority of the Senate supports this bill. The only thing preventing it from becoming law is a procedure the Senate invented for itself, a procedure that has already been modified twice in living memory, once by Democrats in 2013 for presidential nominations, once by Republicans in 2017 for Supreme Court picks. The precedent for changing it when a majority is being blocked is not theoretical. It is recent. It is bipartisan. And both times it was done, the Republic survived. The argument for protecting the filibuster is that you are protecting an institution. The argument against is that you are guarding a treasure for burglars, protecting a rule for opponents who have already stated clearly they would eliminate it the first day it inconvenienced them. Carville told his own party the war on this issue is unwinnable. 13 House Democrats crossed the aisle. A Democratic governor proved the core argument, and the official Senate record now shows 50 votes in favor. Schumer is not stopping this with procedure forever. The only question is when. So here is exactly where we stand, stripped of every talking point from both sides. The House has passed this bill twice. The Senate has a documented majority of 50 votes on the official record. The main Republican holdout, McConnell, is absent from the floor. Collins has crossed over on the clean bill. The reconciliation grant structure gives Republicans a parliamentarian viable path they did not have 6 months ago. And the political environment, after New Jersey, after Carville, after 13 Democratic crossovers, has shifted underneath this fight in a way that did not exist when Schumer declared this dead on arrival a year ago. The filibuster is the last wall, and it is a wall that has already been breached twice by the very people defending it today. This is not over. It is not even close to over. The September legislative window is short. The drafting has to be precise. The caucus has to hold together under a vote-a-rama barrage. But for the first time in 12 months, every piece of this equation is moving in the same direction at the same time. Chuck Schumer built one wall. And on a Thursday night at 11:39 p.m., vote number 151 put the first real crack in it. So tell me in the comments right now, should Senate Republicans force this through reconciliation in September, no matter what it takes? Yes or no? One word is enough. And tell me what state you are watching from, because I want to see how far this story is actually reaching. Make sure you are subscribed with notifications on, because the moment this moves again, I will be breaking it down the same morning it happens. And do not stop here. Washington is full of fights happening right now that the media is hoping you never dig into. Click on the next video and join me as we break down the next battle over the future of American elections. Because the people who understand the process are the people who can never be fooled.